All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Learning SigniFlow, Level 1 Essentials. My name is Greg. I'm the Director for Business Development in the UK and the EU. This is a second edition in our Learning SigniFlow Level 1 with regards to understanding the dashboard, unpacking the workspace, creating workflows, essentially how to use the SigniFlow platform. Today we have Melanie Horn who will be presenting. She is the product manager for SigniFlow in South Africa. She's been with the team since 2013, but she has more than 25 years of experience in the ICT sector. So Melanie, if you want to take the lead and you can run with the presentation.
Hi everybody, good afternoon and welcome. As Greg introduced me, I'm Melanie Horn, the SigniFlow product manager, and the host is Greg Orrell. Also, good morning to all the participants in the US, good afternoon to South Africa, UK and EU, and then good evening to all the participants in the Australia area. Today's agenda for Level 1 Essentials will include my profile, unpacking the dashboard, unpacking the workspace, and creating a workflow. So I will share my screen from here. SigniFlow is an online digital signature workflow engine with audible tracking in the process of documents. We will also discuss the differences between electronic signatures, digital signatures, qualified and advanced electronic signatures. For this, we will show a sample of a document containing an electronic signature and versus a document that contains a digital signature. The basis of digital signatures is that there is a digital certificate that is produced at the time when the document is signed. The signature serves and refers to as what we call an HSM, which is a high security module cryptographic server. So that is where the certificates will reside. So if we actually go a bit down onto the website, we can see there that we can plug any type of system into the actual HSM environment, and we also have the capabilities then to integrate into the actual systems, like for example, ERP systems, which is enterprise resource planning or accounting systems. We're also capable of integrating into CRM, which is your customer relations management, and also your EDMS, which is your electronic document management systems and document generation tools like DocFusion. This integration is done via API, which is your application program interface, which allows one system to give a range of instructions to another system to automate the processes electronically. So there we've actually got the architecture, and when we go to the developer zone, you'll see that there is quite a lot of the APIs, which is broken down into a full RESTful API. And then also we are able to integrate SigniFlow with what we call our signature API. So the signing can happen either where a system will send the document into the SigniFlow environment, or we can actually also sign with inside of your actual applications. We also have a wide range of deployment options. So the first deployment option is the cloud. Here we are able to actually put companies onto a consolidated environment, although each business profile is segmented from everybody or any other businesses with inside the SigniFlow cloud. This will also be able for you to send documents to internal or external users. So when we actually look at the cloud offering, we would also be able to do full API integrations into the cloud offering as well as on the actual SigniFlow offering. Then we've also got where we've got the actual regions. Now, inside the regions, we have cloud offerings. That means Australia and Asia Pacific, Brazil and Latin America, Europe, United Kingdom, US and Canada, and within South Africa. So when those documents are generated on the generic cloud system, they do not leave the region. So all the documents will reside inside of the actual cloud offerings inside of the regions. So any personal information which is generated or inputted into those regions will actually stay inside of those regions. As we've got the ECT Act in South Africa, GDPR and the EIDAS within EU and UK, and where the data is not allowed to cross border, that information will stay inside that cloud offerings. Then we've also got the hybrid offerings. Now the hybrid is where we can actually have different type of deployments. So that means we actually create a full SigniFlow environment. For example, here is the BMW Finance offering that we've got, where we actually brand the system to the company's CI, the corporate identity. So when we actually look at the different hybrid offerings, we have got the cloud offering. So that means we can actually host it in the cloud. We're also able to install this on an on-prem environment. So that means inside your own network. We can also host with your provider of choice. So that means it becomes a private cloud. So if you have AWS or you have Azure or you have your own preferred supplier, we would be able to install the hybrid environment into those hybrid systems. Where do you want to host it? So there we can see we've got the different options, and it's based on users. And we can also, with the Zep2, we host it, and from the Nano app, you would be able to host with SigniFlow, or you can do your own hosting with all the different options. The hybrid deployment will then be deployed in the hosting environment of your choice, and the signature operations will remain. So that means on those HSMs, the cryptographic servers, that will remain. But we can also localize those signing servers inside of your own environment, that when you actually sign a document, it will actually contact your own HSM and not the cloud HSM offering from SigniFlow. Now, when we actually go and look at the digital certificates, SigniFlow is fully certificate agnostic. So that means we are able to use digital certificates in different regions from different certificate authorities, which is your CAs. This can also be deployed on a dongle environment, or if you have smart cards or specific type of ID cards, we would be able to use those certificates from those environments as well. We will now look at the differences between a digital and an electronic signature. So inside of this actual example, you can see that this is an electronic signature. There is no indication whatsoever inside of the document on who signed it and what the verification was used to actually sign this document. From here, I would be able then to copy this image and take this image into a Word document and reuse this image and produce as many documents as what I like with the actual signature where it is based on electronic. So what we can do from here onwards, we can select the place where I want to place the actual signature, and we can paste that signature into any document, and then from there onwards, we can save this as a PDF and send it off. Now, when we actually look at a digitally signed document, we will see that there is a signature indications inside of the actual PDF. Now, when we look at the top section, you would be able to see that the document was signed and all the signatures are valid, and no changes has been made to the document since the signatures was applied to the document. So if we look at the marking indicators inside of the actual PDF, you will see that each signature inside of the SigniFlow system is recorded individually. So each signature is actually a digital certificate that gets produced at time of signing. When we right-click on the actual signatures, you are able to see that you cannot copy and paste this digital signature into another document, because the trust indicators on this side will verify that all the signatures in this document is valid. Now, when we look at the different types of signatures, so the first signature here, when we open up the properties, you will see that it was signed by a specific individual. This is what we call a personal certificate. When we look at the next signature, you can see that this is actually registered to the application. But inside of the certificate, we will embed the information of the person who signed and the verification protocols that was used to authenticate that user before signing. For example, this one was only a username and password. If there was a two-factor authentication, the trust indicators would be added at the back to say that there was a cell phone number, and the cell phone number would then also be able to apply it inside of the digital certificate. You can also see we log the geolocation, and then also the signer's identity is valid because the person actually authenticated onto the system. And then we can also see there is a timestamp that gets applied to the document at time of signing. Now, the third type of certificate that we can use is something that is actually rolled out to the company. So if we actually issue you with a company certificate, that is normally your DSS, your digital signing services, where you would pay per signature, and this will actually then indicate who is the actual company that signed, and also then we can put in the trust indicators of who is the person that signed. So we can create with these type of certificate like company seals for invoice signing. So you would be able to sign all the invoices leaving the company, that no changes can be made to those PDFs. So when we actually start looking at the actual signature indicators, you can see that with each signature, it is fully auditable inside of the Adobe document. There we can also see that the actual signature is LTV enabled, which means long-term validation. So long-term validation is also connected to the actual timestamp on the actual certificate at time of signing. And this also then looks at the OCSP services inside of the certificate to say, was the certificate valid on the day that this document was signed? So when we look at this revocation list, we look at the timestamp, there we would also be able to see that LTV is enabled. LTV is normally used in a long term where a document might need to go to court in 20 years from now, and we must be able to authenticate that that signature is still valid and it was valid on the day that the document was signed. Now, also when we look at the actual inside of the Adobe document, you can see that there is also what we call a version control. So each signature inside of the system, you would be able to have a version control to see what the document looked like at the point of this person signing. For example, if we look at the first signature, you would be able to see that this document was signed by this person on this date, and this is the name of the person. It will also indicate which fields was completed on this document at time of signing. So it is fully auditable from that perspective, where we actually log which fields were completed when a signature was applied. And so each of the signature will have a version to say what did the document look like when the second person signed, and then also on the third signer. Now, if we look at the actual tamper evidence, if I go and make any changes to this document, you will see that it will actually invalidate the signatures. When you revalidate the signatures, it will also indicate where on the document was tampered with. Also, I'm in a full version of Adobe, although Adobe Reader can also be used, which has all the trust indicators for digital signatures. You would then be able to see, if I click on edit text and images, it will tell me that the document cannot be edited because it was digitally signed. So if we look at the differences between the actual certificates, a personal certificate will have all the information of the person who signed. We can also see that it is a full Adobe Trust List certificate, and then also the location where the person was at time of signing. When we look at a common certificate, there we can see that this is an application certificate, and we have embedded the name and the email address or the cell phone number if that authentication was used, as well as the geolocation, which can also have different settings with inside of the SigniFlow environment to say that geolocation is forced or it can be optional. Okay, so if any questions is available, you can pose your questions now.
Okay, Mel, no questions as yet, so you're doing a great job.
Okay, wonderful.
Continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, when we start looking at the actual SigniFlow environment, we can see that on the cloud system, we have also got different methods of authentication, and this is also applicable to the actual hybrid systems. So this is where the service will then be localized with inside your own data center or a hosted data center of your choice, or with inside the SigniFlow data center. Now, when we actually look at the sign up process, you will see that the email address is required, and we also require the cell phone number so that we can OTP that cell phone number against the actual user that signs up for the account. That would be the first method of authentication. The second method of authentication is either via OTP or USSD. So that means when a person actually gets an email to sign a document, they do not have to log into a system with a username and password. They only enter the OTP and they will receive access to the document. And then the third level of authentication is two-factor authentication, which means that we've actually got OTP and USSD with a SigniFlow logon. When these servers are localized with inside of your own data center, we would also be able to do Active Directory integrations. So a person would be able to use a single sign-on from their actual Active Directory. That means it's the username and password that you use with inside your network to actually use that same credentials to log on to the server to actually get documents signed or workflow documents. Now, when we look at when I log into my environment, you'll see that the first place where we get to is the dashboard. Now, when I log in, you can see that my dashboard is fully populated. And when I use my credentials on a different server where I am not a part of that actual hybrid server, you will see that the actual dashboard will change. So any person external to the company that logs onto a hybrid server will only get a minimal menu. If you are inside your own space, you can see that the menu is quite fully populated. Now, when we actually look at the SigniFlow, you'll see that there is a My Profile section. So that's the first section that we are going to cover with inside of this training session. So the first option that you have with inside your profile section is the My Details. You would be able to upload a gravatar, so that means it's connected to social media type of platforms where your actual gravatar will then be available. You would also then be able to see your details here, and you can see that no details can be changed. It can only be changed by the administrators of the system. So the only thing that will be available for you to change is your mobile number, and then you'll have to go through an OTP authentication again. Also, with inside of your actual personal details, there you can see which company you belong to, and also who are the administrators on the system. So if any type of document templates requires for uploading, that it will go and sit inside of the document template library, or you want to be moved, you have got a transfer from one department to another, you can then log a call with your business administrator to move you from a different department to a different department and a different team. Then we've also got the certificate configuration. So there you can see all the different providers. So if you have a USB key where the certificate will reside on, then you would actually select one of these, and then you would be able to configure your actual certificate to where the certificate is located. Then we've also got a PFX upload. So with inside certain countries, a certificate provider will provide the actual user for a digital certificate, which is a personal certificate, a file called a PFX. So the PFX is actually the certificate file. You would be able to upload that certificate file that will then automatically place it onto the HSM, that you can use your own personal certificate wherever you got it from with inside of the SigniFlow environment as well. Then we've also got the edit signature. Now the edit signature, you are able to configure your system to say what type of signature is the standard signature to use with inside of the business environment. So the two options that we have on the configuration panel for the signatures at the back office level for the administrators would be, you can either use a font or you must upload what we call a custom signature. So if you have selected a custom signature, you would be able, the user would be able to upload those as either a JPEG, BMP or PNG. So if you maybe have placed your signature on a piece of paper and you've scanned it in, your scanner would normally produce what we call a PDF, and the PDF you need to snip out your signature and save it as one of these three formats to be able to upload it into the SigniFlow environment. You cannot upload the PDF scan. Then you would also be able to draw a signature. So there is also capturing devices that can be used. We are fully integrated into the following signing pads. That would be your Wacom, your Topaz, your ePad2s, and your Genius signing pads. So those you would be able to put in centralized places with inside of the organization where somebody would then be able to go and capture their signature. We can also sign with a mouse, or you can sign with finger on glass, which can either be a smartphone or a tablet. So when you actually draw your signature, you'll see that it actually smooths out the actual signature. So the smoothing technology that we've built into the Canvas set to actually make the signature not look squiggly. Then we've also got the option to enter or edit your initial. So with the edit initial, the same applies. So it depends on the configuration that is set up with inside of the admin panel, where you would be able either to select a font, or you can select that custom initials would be used with inside of the system. The same applies. If you do upload your initial, it must only be a JPEG, BMP or PNG. or you would be able to draw your initial either with a mouse or with an actual signing pad. And you would see there it is immediately available, and this will be the initial that will be used with inside of the documents that you will be signing. Then we've also got the edit appearance. Now the edit appearance is how do you want to set up what your signature should look like. Now also with inside of the admin panel, the admin would be able to go and set the predefined standards of what the company will want the signature to look like, or you would be able to configure your own signature by taking off a reason, taking off the sign by, and you can see that it will actually adjust the actual image to what it will look like when you sign a document. So the toggles that is available would be the reason code, the sign by, the date field, and the time field. The only time that the border can be removed is when you have a SigniFlow professional account. So that means you have a personal certificate, and also with the legal accounts, which is your advanced electronic signatures. Then we've also got the actual software. Now, with inside SigniFlow, you would be able to download the toolset. So the toolset is fully integrated into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. And then you also have a full notifier. So when we actually look at, for example, Word, any questions so far, Greg?
All good, Mel.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Okay, so if we look at a standard Word, where we would be able then to apply the actual plugin for Word, just waiting for it to open up the Word document, you will see that SigniFlow actually is part of the ribbon inside of the Word environment. So if I say this is a test document, and now I would like to sign this document, you would be able to see that the settings is applicable. So you need to enter the actual environment that you actually will log onto with inside of the settings panel. So that means it is the server address for your SigniFlow hybrid or your SigniFlow cloud account. After you have saved that, then you would be able to log on to the system by clicking on the login button, where you would be able to apply your username and apply the password that you have created. And then you get authenticated with the system. Then you would also be able to take this document and directly send it from Word to the actual SigniFlow environment. So there we can see that I need to authenticate, as this is part of our setup. And there you would be able to see that the document will immediately be available for you to workflow. Then also with inside of the Word environment, you would be able to add a signature field. So if you add a signature field, so this means you do not want to workflow the document. You want to actually sign the document and take that document and email it to somebody. You would be able to add a signature placing, and then you can click on the sign button, which will then automatically take this document. So this is applicable to Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It will actually upload it into the SigniFlow environment because you have authenticated. It will sign the document, and it will download the signed PDF directly back into your own desktop machine or your laptop or your tablet or smartphone. So you would be able to actually sign the documents with inside of a Windows environment, where you would then be able to send this document off for signing. Okay. Any questions so far on the add-ins?
This is all good, Mel. It seems like you're explaining it really, really well. There was one question with regards to two-factor authentication.
Yes.
So just some idea of how we integrate that into SigniFlow. Do we allow it for registrations or just for signing?
So it can be integrated. All registrations will have what we call the OTP, the two-factor. So it's a token to the email address and an OTP to the cell phone. When it comes to signing a document with two-factor authentication, it is also set up with inside of the back office administration panel, where you would stipulate that the user must enter a username and password with an OTP or USSD. There is also an international SMS provider called Infobit that we are integrated to. They are present in 120 countries worldwide, where you would be able to send out in those countries the different SMSs or USSDs or the OTPs for the person to authenticate with. So that will require for them to register for a SigniFlow account, as well as when they sign a document, they need to enter a username and password, also then linked with an OTP or USSD. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it's very thorough. Just something to keep in mind as well, different regions would have a different setup when it comes to OTPs. I know your South African server has an OTP for registration. The EU, the UK regions, for instance, don't.
Yes.
They go through an email for verification. And then if you can just remind everybody, I can see you're showing it on the screen, but the ribbon, the tool set, it's available on your dashboard when you sign in. So by clicking on profile and then clicking on software, and then you're able to download that tool set.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, and then we can also move on to the actual contacts. Now, the contacts is where we actually will add people to a contact so that I would be able to workflow documents to that specific person. We've also got a full bulk upload. So if you have a spreadsheet with all the information, so the information that is required to add somebody to a workflow is the full names, the surname, the actual cell phone number, and the email address. So there you would be able to, if you have a spreadsheet with all that information in, you would be able to bulk upload it, or you would be able to add a person manually to the actual contact list. But also you don't need to. As soon as what you set up a workflow and you enter the information of the person with inside of the workflow setup, they automatically get added to your contact list. Now you will see that there is certain people that I'm able to remove and certain people that I'm not able to remove. Everybody with inside of your company, part of your business profile, you will see that the remove button is not available. Any contacts that you have added to the actual workflow that gets written into your contacts, there you would be able to remove this individual. So if somebody does leave the company, the business administrator would normally remove that person from the actual business environment, and that person's contact details won't display with inside of your contact list anymore. Then we can start on the dashboard. Now, as we can see, the different baskets with inside of the dashboard environment is a document filtering tool by status. So every single time a document moves with inside of the workflow, the status with inside of the dashboard will change. So the first status we have is pending. So these are documents that you need to action. Either you need to sign it or you need to approve the document. So with inside of your pending basket, you would be able to view all the documents that you need to action. And when you click on the little green plus sign, you will see that each document has an individual audit trail. So when we look at the audit trails, you would be able then to see where the document is and who still needs to action the document after you have signed or approved the document. So if it is a document, you can actually click on the open, or if you have received it via a workflow, an email will come through and you can click on the link and move directly onto the actual document to sign it. The next option is what we call the circulating basket. So this is when you have sent out documents to somebody else to action. So when we look at the actual grid, you will see a waiting signature from. So every single one of them where somebody else needs to sign, or you can view every single audit trail. So you can see the audit trails will adjust to what has happened to the document. Now also, when we look at this, there was 2 SMS validations, but the person has never signed the document. Then we can also see there is an advanced audit trail. So when I open up the advanced audit trail, it will give a step-by-step guide on what has happened to the document so far. You're also able to download this in a PDF format, although the audit trail from SigniFlow will automatically be embedded inside of the actual PDF that was signed. So that technology is called steganography. So steganography, where the image occurs with inside of the signed PDF, this actual audit are able to do manual reminders, so that if a person has not signed the document and you would like them to sign it urgently, you would be able to send a manual reminder. You would be able to open up the document. You would be able to download the document as well as share the document with somebody else. So send a link of the document to somebody else. Then you're also able to cancel this document. For example, if you pick up that there was a mistake on the document, you can click on the cancelled, and this will automatically move the document from the circulating basket into the actual cancel basket. Now, when we look at the workflow that was on this document, everybody prior in the workflow that has already actioned that document will get notification via email that the document has been cancelled. Then we've also got the expired basket. Now this is when we set a due date on a document. For example, if I would like to send out quotations to my customers to sign, and the quotation is only valid for 5 days, I would be able to set the due date with auto expiration, so that the customer, when they receive the quotation and they haven't signed it when the due date is due, we will auto retract that workflow so that the customer cannot sign that document after the expiry date has been reached. Then we've also got the rejected basket. Now this is when somebody doesn't agree with the content of the document. So when I look at the audit trail, this is also now placed into the audit trail of the document. And as well, if somebody rejects a document, everybody prior in the workflow will receive notification that the document was rejected, and the rejection notice will be placed inside of the email for them to see what was the reason why the document was rejected. Inside of the completed basket, this is where the workflow has been completed and all the steps that I've set up in the workflow has been done. There we can also then see this document was initiated on this date and this time by this person. They viewed the document, they signed the document, and the pages are indicated where they have signed at the date and time that they signed it on, the person who signed the document, the IP address, and then the geolocation of where the person was at time of signing. So there we can also have that we force geolocations so that the person must enter the OK for maybe Chrome or Explorer or edge to actually find the geolocations. There we can also open up the document. We can download the full history of the actual full audit trail into a PDF format. But like I said, this is already embedded inside of the signed PDF document with steganography, or you would be able to share it, delete it, and then we've also got the option of .flow, which is our document archiving solution, where you are able then to file this document directly, or if this document is sent to a document management environment via API, we would be able to remove this document off the SigniFlow environment when the document has been transferred. Now, when we look at the drafts folder, now the adding that I showed you within Word, so if you have uploaded the document and that document is not actioned immediately where you can configure the workflow and send it out, that document will reside inside of your actual drafts folder. So on the drafts folder, you can click on the edit workflow button, and then you would be able to go and set up your workflow from there. Then we've also got the shared with me basket. Now this is where you are not the originator of the document, but you were a participant in a document workflow. So from the shared with me basket, you would be able to see who sent the document. You're also able to view the full audit trail of each of the documents. And then you would be able to open up the document if the document has already been actioned to you. If it hasn't been actioned to you, you will see that that document will be available inside of your pending basket, although it also appears inside of the shared with me basket. Then we've also got the deleted items. So if I do remove any documents off the SigniFlow environment, you see that we actually keep the audit trail of that document. The document will not be on the SigniFlow environment, but the full audit trail for that document will be on SigniFlow. Then we've also got the team docs. Now, team docs is when you have a hierarchy structure set up inside of the business profile, where there is departments, there's teams, and there is users. A user can belong to a team to a department, and the team lead would be able to view all the documents inside of his team. And then you see there is also what we call a reassign button. The reassign is there then for if this person might be off ill, I can then nominate somebody internally to actually action that document. I see there is questions.
Yeah, Mel, there's some good questions coming up now as well. So you mentioned when it comes to the signature, how much control do we have of the other users? So if I'm sending the document out to a customer, how much control do I have over his signature and the appearance thereof?
It is set inside of the EasySign config onto what all the signatures in the system must look like. So you have full control on that.
Okay, excellent. And the second thing, you showed us the rejection of a document. So if a customer rejects a document, can we amend it without having to upload the document again?
No, you won't be able to amend it inside of the SigniFlow environment. SigniFlow is a read-only environment, and when you actually get to sign the document and there's fields to be completed, but you cannot change the original content of the document. So also when you change a document, it's not the same version that you've had on the SigniFlow environment, that it is required that you re-upload the document and you restart the workflow from there.
Okay, excellent. And the last thing as well was just around the geolocation. Just maybe mention as well that it's an optional thing. It's not going to stop you from signing if you don't have location available.
That's correct. That is why I've mentioned previously, you can set inside of the EasySign config or the business profile that they are forced to do the geolocation, or it is an optional where they can say that, no, I do not allow geolocation, but they can still sign the document.
Perfect. Okay.
All right, so then inside of the Teams folder, you would be able to reassign that document. If it is still internal, if it's already gone external and proxy has been enabled, you would be able to nominate somebody else. And then there's also a reminder button that the actual team lead would be able to send these reminders out to the individuals that need to sign the document. So there we can see who it was requested by and who is now to action the document, and the date that this request was sent on, the actual document name, and the status that that document will be in. Then we've also got the portfolio environment. Okay, there's 2 more questions.
I know those are the 2 we dealt with already, Mel.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, so with inside of portfolios, portfolios are technology where a singular PDF can consist of multiple PDFs signed or unsigned. So there we can see each of the portfolios also have a full audit trail. And when you open up the portfolio, you'll see the individual documents with inside of this portfolio. So when you download it, I just want to show the example. When you download this portfolio, you will see that it is a singular PDF consisting of multiple PDFs. Adobe will also build a full table of content, and then these can also then be extracted as individual documents from the portfolio as well. Okay. So now from here onwards, we're actually going to create the workflow. Just waiting for it to go through the desktop. So there you would be able to create the workflow from the sidebar or directly from the actual dashboard that we have. Now, when we create a workflow, you will see that you are able to upload a document from your hard drive. So when you click on here, you can select your folder and your documents will be available. The formats that we also support is PDF, text files, XML files, print files, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, code files, images that you would be able to workflow through the system to get those documents signed. And like I've mentioned earlier on, we also have a full template library that can be set up by the business administrator. For example, if there is an NDA, you would be able to upload it, but there will be no content with inside of this document. These are only blank templates. So if we select either an upload or we select from a template library, then you would be able to see that the next phase that it will move into is what we call the document information screen. There we can also see that each document will then get a document ID. So this is the audit number that SigniFlow assigns to each document in the system. The document will also have a document name, which can be the actual template that I have selected or the file that you have uploaded. You would be able to rename that document, or you would be able to place anything behind the name of the actual document. So if this was an agreement that I'm going to send to XYZ, I would save it, and there you can see that it is the template name with the actual name of the customer. With inside of the back office environment for the administrator, they would be able to stop anybody from renaming the actual template names, but that they can only append. So that means add this back section onto the document name. Then we're also able to start a new portfolio. So the portfolio is that folder where you can have multiple PDF documents within, and when you download it, it is a singular PDF. So I would be able to start a new portfolio, and I would also be able to link it to a portfolio if a portfolio has already existed. Then we can get to the document information. So the priority you can set to low, normal, or high. This will come through with inside of the email that the person receives with different colors that is associated to the priority. You would also be able to set up a due date to say if this document needs to be signed by the 30th of June, we will automatically insert into the email that will be sent to the person an Outlook calendar reminder for the person to install with inside of their Outlook calendar. Then we've also got the options of auto expire, yes or no. So if this is set to no, the document will remain on the system. If this is set to yes, the document will automatically be retracted on the due date that was set. Then we've also got what we call the auto reminders. So if this is set to no, no reminders will go out. If this is set to yes, on every single morning, the system will automatically send out a reminder to all the participants that haven't actioned any documents. Then we've also got what we call our metadata types. Now, metadata types is the indexing values about a document that if we do want to file it into a document management environment, we can have pre-indexing information about the document. So when we actually transfer that document through to another system, you are able then to transfer the metadata for auto-indexing. Then we've also got the option, do I want to send all the emails, skip all the emails, or skip just the first one? So if you're the first signer, you would skip it. But normally you would like the emails to be sent to everybody so that they would be able to get notification to action those documents. Then we also have what we call custom messages. Now, custom messages is set up with inside of the business profile environment for the administrator. So the administrator would be able to set up these messages according to document types. So there we can see we've got a client contract SLA. So if I select any of these, it will pre-populate the messages according to what the document type is. Any questions on the document information screen?
All straightforward so far? Good to carry on.
Perfect. Then we also get to how we set up the workflow. Now, also we have full template capabilities. So if there is any resolutions from companies, or you've got a DOA, which is your delegation of authority with inside your business environment, you would be able to set up predefined templates based on the resolutions or their DOAs, or you would be able then to create what we call a manual workflow. Just to cover, there you can see I've got a workflow for anything under 10,000 Rand. It must be signed by certain people, and there's a CAPEX with no limits. So you would be able then to predefine these according to the process that the document must go through. Now, to set up a manual workflow or ad hoc workflow, the first button is add yourself. The second button is add a signer. So this can be internal or external to the company. You also have the capabilities of doing a predefined face-to-face. So that means, for example, when you work in a factory environment, maybe the staff are blue-collar workers, they don't have access to any form of technology like smartphones, computers, laptops, or tablets. You would be able then to facilitate in-witness signing face-to-face with authentication signatures. So that means when the person comes into the office, they maybe want to sign an increase letter, they will receive an OTP as a form of authentication. They enter the OTP, they can sign it, and the HR will sign it as a witness to that employee's signature. Then we've also got add an approver. Now, for an example, if I set up a quotation, but I first want my manager to actually authorize the quotation to see if he's happy, either he can approve it or he can reject it, I would be able then to add my manager as an approver. They do not sign the document, they only approve or reject the workflow. Then we've also got group signing. Now, group signing comes in with resolutions again, or with a DOA, your delegation of authority, where a document must be signed off by a group of people. So they are authorized to sign this type of document. For example, if it is a memorandum, or if it is an expense claim, or I send out a quotation to a company or a contract, and I receive a resolution to say that 5 people in this company is allowed to sign this type of documents. So when we actually set up, and I say I only need 2 signatures, I add all 6 into the workflow. The workflow will simultaneously go out to all 6, the first 2 users that signs and logs on inside the SigniFlow environment. The other 4 will get notification that the document has been signed, and they will move on with inside of the workflow. Then we can also add a viewer. For example, if I send out an offer letter maybe to a candidate, and the candidate for employment accepts that offer, then I want payroll to load them onto the payroll system. I would be able to make payroll a viewer. So for this example, I'm just going to add 2 signers. So what you need to do is there you can see, is proxy allowed, yes or no? So this means, is this person authorized to actually nominate somebody else to sign the document on their behalf? If it is yes. If it is no, this user will be forced to sign the document. Then we can also add internal or external signers. So I'm going to use jando, which will be an external signer to the company. And like I said, the only information that is required would be the actual name, the surname, the email address, and the actual mobile number. Also applicable, they would be able to proxy this yes or no. And so you would be able then also to build in a face-to-face signature with inside this workflow. You can add an approver. You can do group signing within the same workflow and add viewers, as many as you like. So any of these options can be applicable to a single workflow. Any questions?
Mel, just in regards to the tool set, the SigniFlow tool set, just a question on whether it works with Mac OS.
No, it's only for your Windows environment.
Okay, I do know from developers as well that they are working on a version that will be compatible with Linux and Mac.
That's
so we
correct, yes.
Yeah, we're hopeful that maybe Q3 that'll be available.
Correct.
The other question was regards to notifications. What are the options besides email?
With integrations that we can do and custom development, we would be able to send it out via SMS. But that is custom development. It's not standard part of the SigniFlow environment.
Have we done any integration with Microsoft Teams, for instance?
No, nothing as yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And then after we set up a workflow, we would be able to save these as templates. So you would be able to create all your templates, or if it is an ad hoc workflow, you can then click on the Go to Doc Prepper button. Now, Doc Prepper is where we're going to prepare the document for who needs to action what with inside of the document. So there we can see on the right-hand side, if there was more signers, all the names will appear there. So the fields that is available is your actual signature field. So you can drag and drop that into position. Then we've also got initialing fields. We've also got mandatory text fields, non-mandatory checkboxes, checkbox groups, drop-downs. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build who needs to complete which section. So for the first signer, I only want them to sign the document. So there we can see on this one, when we set the user info fields, I would be able that the system can automatically populate the name, and they would be able to populate the date it was signed on. We can also then add the email address that it's visible with inside of the document, and then also the telephone number. So these are all options that you would be able to add on information that's already pre-populated by the system. Then for the second signer, I would like to place the signature field. I would like them to initial each page. And there you will see it will ask if you want to add this to all the pages. So if you say yes, it will actually place the initialing field on both. We can also then have a mandatory text field. So this means it needs to be completed before the document is allowed to be signed. We can also have non-mandatory text fields. So that means it's optional. They don't have to complete this in order to sign the document. Then we've also got non-mandatory checkboxes. So this is the same applicable to the actual optional text box. And then we've also got what we call the checkbox group. Now this is where you can configure to say, if you have options like these, where it is a yes and a no. To each question, you would be able to say yes, or no, but it can't be both. So with inside of the checkbox groups, as soon as what you save it, you would be able then to say how many will be minimum and how many will be maximum. So in this case, I only want one tick box of the two. It can either be yes or it can either be no, but it can't be both. And then we've also got the drop down. So the drop down is a selection box which a person would then be able to select from it. For example, if we take this as a contract, I want a 6-month contract or 12 months. And so you would be able to add all the options with inside of this drop down. So now also what we are able to do is actually save this as an actual template. So you would be able to save it under your personal, a team, a department, or for the business. So that means everybody inside of that team, the department, or the business would be able to use it. And then you can also name your document to say this will be my AAA template. And the next time you use this document, you would then click onto the orange cloud to actually load up the template from there. So you don't have to go and reset up all these fields from scratch again. You only load the template and it will fully populate the document. Then we're also able to share this portfolio, because remember we made this document as part of a portfolio to a specific user. So for jando, we can also assign different access levels, either viewer, contributor, or owner. A viewer can view, a contributor can view and contribute documents, and an owner would be able to view, contribute, and delete. So if we add jando as a contributor, she would be able to add documents to the portfolio, and we will send the notification as soon as what the workflow is released or when the action from that user is required. Then we'll also be able to set placeholders. Now, placeholders are supporting documents that are required from an individual. For example, this is now a contract, so I would like the ID of this person I'm signing with, and you can stipulate that you need financial statements or purchase orders or quotations or anything that is related to this document. So any supporting document that you do require, you would be able to add a placeholder for that document. Any questions on the document preparation?
Just one, Mel, with that in regards to signatories, whether they could sign on one page and maybe initial other pages. What are the options? I mean, how many of these different options can you apply to each customer?
You can apply as many as you like. So if I want to say that Jane Doe must sign on page 1, but she only needs to initial on page 2, I would be able to only apply that initial to that specific page. Or if I want Jane Doe to actually initial next to a paragraph, I don't want her to initial each page, but she only must initial to that paragraph, I can allocate it to there. So there's many various options how you can configure the doc prepper template.
Perfect. That's it for now.
Okay, and then we can release the document for signing. Because I'm the first user with inside of the workflow, you would then able to open up the document immediately for you. There's the custom message that I have selected, and then my action field is to sign the document. So there I can see all this information is already pre-populated. And after I've set up, remember, we've uploaded our signature, we've set our appearances. The only thing I need to do is click the sign here button. Then the workflow will kick off where it will go through to Jane Doe. Jane Doe will then receive an email for her to action these documents. So now we're just waiting for the email to come through. Anybody, any questions so far?
Just in regards to sign-free users. So Lynette was asking whether a customer must be a SigniFlow user to sign a document.
No. So if you set the authentication method to OTP. They do not need to register for a SigniFlow account. They would only be able to enter an OTP and then enter the actual document to sign it. So I have configured this actual user or my profile to only authenticate on OTP. So this will actually show Lynette exactly what her question was and what the solution to that question will be. So if you don't want somebody to register on the SigniFlow environment, and you click on the open document, you will see that they will be presented with an OTP. So when they send the OTP, that user will just need to enter the actual OTP and then gain access to that document. And you see that there will be no username and password that needs to be entered or any registration that needs to be done on SigniFlow. Okay, does that answer that question?
It does. Thanks, Mel.
Okay, so there we can see now that jando, there's the custom message. Jando would then be able to upload this document. If it was on a mobile phone, the camera would automatically activate. If it is on like a computer or a Mac, then you would be able to upload the document from your actual hard drive, and there you can see it will create a second tab. Now for jando, there are certain fields that need to be completed. The red is mandatory, blue non-mandatory. So the blue fields I can skip, but the red fields, if I try and sign, it will tell me that these fields need to be completed. So under the yes and no, where we had the checkbox group, if I select yes, you'll see that no is not available and vice versa. We also have the actual drop-down box where they can select from. Then the company name can be inserted. And then before the document can be signed, this paragraph must be initialed. So there we can actually see. And then we're also asked to apply it page by page, or you can apply it to all the pages. Now, when it is a single page by page, you want to read each page and then initial, or when it is all the pages, you would be able to say, I confirm that I've read and understood the content of the document. If I say apply to all, if there was 100 pages, it will then go an initial. All 100 pages, in this case, it was only to that paragraph, and then jando can click on the sign here button to actually sign the document, which will then be sent via email and be distributed to both the signers. That option is also available to put off with inside of the business administration. So that was your actual desktop, your workspace, and the workflow setup. Any other questions on that side?
All clear.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for allowing us to have the opportunity today to present. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Just to let you know as well that if you registered for this webinar and you followed through on the link, you will receive a download link to view the video so you can watch it again. But otherwise, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us on support@signiflow.com and we can get in touch with you. Otherwise, you can always just reply back to the webinar registration link that you received.